Hello, I'm Adrian Finnegan. This is Counting the Cost on Al Jazeera, your weekly look at the world of business and economics. This week, recharge your batteries. Under pressure from trade tariffs, new CO2 rules, and even Brexit, car makers around the world are electrifying. How power outages in South Africa are putting livelihoods at risk. Plus, why connecting young people to jobs and training is so important for Middle East economies. Back in 1888, the electric car was all the rage, but the discovery of large petroleum reserves worldwide and the combustion engine quickly killed it off. Electrification was very much the theme at this year's Geneva Motor Show, but consumers are yet to be convinced. Of the 80 million cars expected to be sold this year, just 2 million of them will be electric. But that's not stopping the big car makers from making the switch. Our technology editor, Mariana Hond, has more.
Most of us drive around in gas guzzlers. Powered by fossil fuels, they pump out carbon dioxide. But take a step back in time, and it could all have been so different. Back in the 1890s, the streets of London were humming with the sound of the world's first electric taxi. The Hummingbird was quiet and clean, but out of reach for most people. And then along came Henry Ford. Not only did he invent a car that ran on an oil-powered combustion engine, he also worked out how to mass-produce them on an assembly line. Suddenly, cars were affordable, and the electric car with its expensive battery and limited range disappeared. More than 100 years later, our modern cars are still burning fossil fuels and contributing a quarter of global CO2. New emissions rules, trade tariffs and innovations are part of what's now driving car makers to make the switch to electric. Asia is leading the way. More electric cars were sold in China last year than in the rest of the world combined. But what's not clear is the real cost of going electric. The automotive industry in its current form employs millions of people around the world. And then there's the question of who is going to buy them. Many consumers remain unconvinced that the electric car will be as clean, easy to use and affordable as they're being told.
Mariana, well, our economics editor Abid Ali caught up with Linda Jackson, who's the CEO of Citroen, earlier this week at the Geneva Motor Show. He began by asking her if electric cars, which take fewer people to assemble, catch on, then what will that mean for jobs?
Oh, well, that's a very, very good question. So I don't know whether it's the question of whether it takes less people to make the cars. It's about how many manufacturers will be able to afford to make the cars and how many of our customers will be able to buy our cars, of course, because electric cars do mean that potentially that will be an increase in price. So there's very many factors playing in terms of what the future is for the automotive industry. And I think one of the other things that we never talk about, of course, is not just about the electric cars, but of course all of the infrastructure that we need to be able to run them and actually move about in our electric cars. So that's another factor that will impact our society.
So we are moving towards electric cars. I think that's the general opinion of most automakers. But in the wake of the diesel emissions scandal, is there a reluctance for consumers to step forward and buy electric cars?
No, I don't think there's a reluctance. It's a fact because all manufacturers are now in the race to make sure that we get and introduce our electric cars. I, for example, at Citroen, make sure that I have a plug-in hybrid vehicle next year, and every vehicle from next year will have an electric version. So all of the manufacturers are making sure that the product is available. The next question is, customers aren't reluctant to buy it, but what they're obviously very keen on understanding is making sure that they're able to use their cars, they're able to charge their cars, they're able to move around and be charging them whilst they're on the move. And that's something that hasn't really been considered generally, I think. So that's one concern. Apart from that, I mean, everything will be available for customers, but of course we have to realise as well that the cost of the batteries, etc., will mean that there is an increment for having an electric car, and I'm not sure that all customers currently realise that there will be an increment.
So does China have an advantage when it comes to electric cars and batteries?
Well, China, of course, has in terms of availability of batteries, of course, China is the lead. So, I mean, it's clearly every manufacturer is trying to find ways to be able to support the supply of batteries in the future, because that's absolutely fundamental, and everybody's looking at other ways. But clearly China is in a very strong position, and clearly in terms of their own market, is move very quickly towards electric and obviously wanting to encourage electric, obviously on the back of the fact that they are the major battery supplier. So clearly it's a major concern and question for all manufacturers to be able to find solutions to ensure that we have the continued supply of batteries in the future.
And you plan to move into India. What's behind that move?
Well, what's behind that move? First of all, India is a very big market, and we know it's a growing market. So, currently today it's about 3 million passenger cars, and it will double by 2025. So we know it's a big market. It's a market which we are not present in. And Citroen wants to become more international. We have very successful results in Europe, but now we want to grow. We want to take the recipe that we used in Europe to be able to conquer and go into new frontiers. India is a very important market for us because of the size, and also because we think that the Citroen brand, with our values, which is about being inspired by our customers, close to our customers, a mainstream brand, unique styling, and all of the services that we might offer, we believe that we'll be able to offer something different to our potential Indian customers. So we're going in there. We know it's a very complex market, but we're going in there and making sure that we understand what our Indian customers would like, and we hope to be offering our first vehicles before the end of 2021.
Now, you're a British executive living in France, working for a French company. Can you explain what Brexit is?
Can anybody explain what Brexit is? No. All I can explain to you is that, the impact on our businesses. The UK, I might be British and I might be leading a French company, but the UK is my 5th most important market in terms of volume. So clearly it's a very important market for me. Can I explain what happened? No, because at the moment we don't know what's going to happen, and I think that's the most important part, is we don't know what's going to happen. So we're all looking for clarity. We all have our plans, including PSA. We have our plans for Plan A, Plan B, hard Brexit, soft Brexit, no deal, or whatever it may be. But until we know exactly what is going to happen, we are in this very difficult stage of instability. Clearly, for Citroen, I import vehicles into the UK. So clearly, I'm interested in what the tariffs might be, if there are any. It is a single market, is an easy market, free supply. I mean, so many questions and needing so many answers.
Linda Jackson, the CEO of Citroen. Now, in many parts of the world, a reliable electricity supply is still very much a problem. In South Africa, for example, rolling blackouts are impacting many businesses' ability to operate. Eskom is one of the biggest power utilities in the world, but it's technically insolvent. And the crisis there is putting livelihoods at risk, as Malcolm Webb reports from Johannesburg.
It's a problem for almost all businesses, from mines to shops to factories like this one.
When there is no electricity, there is no production. And then it affects our bottom line at the same time, that you can't have people coming to work not doing the work. So you end up paying people for just coming to work.
When the power cuts, the machines stop, the lights go out, and then the factory depends on this generator to be able to run. They've become a common sight in South African factories and businesses, but it's not powerful enough to run all of the machines, and it guzzles fuel. So that slows down production and pushes up costs.
Power stations have been struggling to keep up with demand. Economists and opposition politicians say years of corruption and mismanagement at the state-owned electricity company called Eskom are to blame. It was at the centre of numerous corruption scandals throughout the 9-year rule of former President Jacob Zuma. Investigators say it was corruption that caused stagnation of the whole economy.
Eskom, in many ways, is a microcosm of that. There is a lot of, policy uncertainty in this country, and it's policy uncertainty which is generated by, in effect, creating a policy environment that suits the looting of the economy rather than investment in the economy.
And it's foreign investment, $100 billion of it, that President Cyril Ramaphosa promised since he took over just over a year ago, along with tackling corruption and creating jobs.
We recognize, as do all South Africans, that our greatest efforts to end poverty, unemployment, and inequality will achieve little unless we tackle state capture and corruption in all its manifestations and in all areas of public life.
General elections are due in 2 months. Ramaphosa needs to convince people his ANC government is succeeding. Its perceived ability to revive the economy, tackle corruption and blackouts will be crucial.
Still to come on Counting the Cost. Brexit 24 hours later. What happens if there's no deal? We have a story from the Spanish-Portuguese border. But first, 5 million young people will be entering the job market every year for the next 5 years here in the Middle East. Counting the Cost has been following one organisation and its efforts to connect young men and women with jobs. Al Jazeera's Diana Karim reports.
In Arabic, the word Salatek means your connection. It's also the name of a Qatari organization that aims to connect young people with employment opportunities in places such as Yemen, Somalia, and Palestine. So far, Salatek has helped 1 million young people across the Middle East and North Africa find meaningful work. Its chairperson, Her Highness Sheikha Moza bint Nasser, was in Geneva this week to mark the 10th anniversary of Salatek's founding and to announce an ambitious new target.
In addition to the 1 million young people we have already connected with jobs, we now have commitment in place to connect another 2 million young men and women by 2022. That's 3 million meaningful jobs and businesses, thanks to Salatek and its partners. But we must do more. I therefore propose that we set a new target and raise the bar to 5 million by 2022.
Salatek acts as a bridge, connecting often disaffected youth with apprenticeships, microfinancing initiatives, and partners who can teach them how to run a business. The hope is it will help them become financially independent to achieve their aspirations and make a positive contribution to the economic and social development of their communities. Salatek wants to combat marginalization and extremism. It says young people who have jobs feel more connected to society, bringing security and peace to neglected communities. One of the main aims at the UN in Geneva this week was to attract new donors and strategic partners to help Salatek deliver on its goal of helping 5 million young people within the next 3 years. The region is already struggling to create enough jobs for its youth, and the International Monetary Fund estimates 27 million young people will soon be looking for work. While initiatives such as Salatek are important, it's clear that much more needs to be done, and soon.
Well, I was in Geneva earlier this week too, and I got the chance to sit down with the founder and chairperson of Salatek, Her Highness Sheikha Moza bint Nasser. Your Highness, thank you so much for being with us on Counting the Cost. You're known all over the world for your advocacy for quality education. And yet here you are in Geneva talking about employment. Now, is this a shift in emphasis for you? How does Salatek play into education? And what are the challenges, in particular for the Middle East, North Africa region?
As you know, I'm a great believer in education. I believe in the power of education, transforming lives and societies. Education is the basic building block for human development. It is the base where these young people can learn their skills, their knowledge, the art of citizenry, and also they will construct their first worldview. But education alone is not enough. You need to follow that with decent work and employment. We failed to provide our young people with the right environment, economic, social, and cultural environment for their prosperity and their hope. We have a very young population. 1/3 of our population is between 15 years old and 29 years old. This is a very productive age. This is the generation that can drive the engine of our economic growth and lead our social changes, positive social changes. So I believe that it is imperative to invest in them and to give them the opportunity by which they can be active in their societies and practice the citizenry or the art of citizenry that we taught them during their schooling.
And so that's where Salatek comes in.
Salatek is working to fill certain gaps. The problem is that some of these young people, they lack skills that really can allow them to fit in this an ever-changing market. So Salatek is training these young people to be employed We help them for their employability. Also, we train them to be also entrepreneurs. We provide them with loan guarantees. We try to instill in them their self-confidence, to see themselves as productive citizens. And we help also certain governments to change certain mindsets, certain policies, to create this ecosystem by which these young people can excel or practice this good citizenry.
Your Highness, we talk a lot on counting the cost about the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. How does Silatech contribute towards those goals?
Well, Silatech Works actually tackles many of the SDGs. So it is from poverty to decent work, to gender equality, to partnership. I mean, when we connect these young people to jobs or train them to be entrepreneurs, their families also can benefit from these businesses or these jobs, their society, and we are in a way activating the business and the whole community. And also we work in partnerships. I mean, we have international partners, so regional partners, and also local partners. Local partners for us are very essential because they are the one who can lead us towards the right programs. There is no one size fits all. So we need really to make sure that what we are offering is appropriate and adequate to the culture and the dynamics of the society that we operate in. Of course, the regional and international partners, they help us to transfer certain expertise and knowledge to these local people that we are helping and supporting.
Your Highness, it's been an honour to have you on Counting the Cost. Many thanks indeed for being with us.
Thank you.
Now, a Chinese company is challenging the US government in court. Huawei says that a US law banning the government and its contractors from using the company's products is unjust. Washington says that Huawei poses a security threat. Al Jazeera's Adrian Brown reports now from Shenzhen, where Huawei has its headquarters.
From the air, Huawei's success is clear. Just part of its sprawling complex in the special economic zone of Shenzhen. Huawei's name literally means the achievements of China. But the Trump administration says those achievements owe more to cheating and stealing than the sort of innovation on display here. Allegations its top executives deny. On Thursday, they held a news conference inviting selected media organizations, including Al Jazeera, to confirm that Huawei has filed a lawsuit against the US government over a ban which restricts federal government employees from using its equipment.
We are left with no choice but to challenge the law in court. This ban not only to unlawful, but also harms both Huawei and US consumers.
Once more, they insisted Huawei's not in the pocket of China's government and accused the US of hacking its servers.
The US government has long branded Huawei as threat. It has hacked our servers and stolen our emails and source code.
Huawei's top officials were once like China's leaders. They rarely spoke to the foreign media. But the arrest of the firm's chief financial officer in Canada, where she's now fighting extradition to the United States, has changed all of that, and the firm has now begun an extraordinary legal and media offensive. Huawei is a success story that chimes with many Chinese people's sense of patriotism and pride. It's not clear who's behind this music video now circulating on social media, praising its smartphones. The firm insists it had nothing to do with it. Huawei is fighting another legal battle in Canada, where its chief financial officer, Meng Wanzhou, appeared before an extradition court on Wednesday. She's accused of breaking US sanctions and money laundering. Meng's lawyers argue her arrest was politically motivated. Huawei is trying to weather storms on many fronts. The copycat European architecture is not a theme park, but the firm's new research and development campus. The company's critics continue to argue that it's not just the buildings here that have been cloned.
Social media giant Facebook has rolled out new plans to improve user privacy on its platforms. CEO Mark Zuckerberg says that Facebook's focus will change from public to private sharing. He also said that Facebook will not be storing user data in countries with a weak human rights record. Last year, it was revealed that data from millions of Facebook users was harvested by a political consultancy. Now, a quick note about next week's Counting the Cost. We'll be wishing happy birthday to the internet with Tim Berners-Lee, founder of the World Wide Web. As his creation turns 30, we'll be asking him what to expect over the next 3 decades. Make sure not to miss next week's Counting the Cost. And finally this week, British citizens living in the European Union are waiting anxiously to see what decision their government and Parliament in London is about to make over Brexit. Al Jazeera's Lawrence Lee reports now from the Spanish town of Ayamonte, which sits on the country's border with Portugal.
It's Carnival Week in Ayamonte and people are on the streets. It isn't a rich place by any means, but the sense of community is obvious. At their home, Karen, Simon and 13-year-old Jaden aren't so happy. They fell in love with the place, moved here years ago, run a small consultancy from home. Jaden is bilingual and regards himself as more Spanish than British. And they're watching events unfold in the UK with unmitigated horror.
Yeah, absolutely ashamed, because every person I spoke to here in Spain looks at me with pity or with a look in their face to say, why are you doing this? And I'm so sorry that they're doing this to you. I'm so sorry, because I just cannot understand. What is your problem? What is the problem? Tell me, what are you going to gain from leaving?
And what do you say?
I have absolutely no idea. I can't answer them.
They worry about the impact of Brexit on their business, but they worry more about their son.
There was one instance when he overheard us discussing whether we might have to go back to the UK to protect our business. And he started crying. He came in and he said, I'm not going back to the UK. You can't make me go back. And I said, no, okay. Don't worry about it. It's not for you to worry about. He said, Mum, if you make me go back, I'm going to run away and I'm going to get a plane and come back to Spain. Now that broke my heart.
To rub salt into their wounds, just as the UK has been turning away from Europe, so the Kendricks' European home has done the opposite. With some fanfare, Ayamonte joined forces with its Portuguese neighbour Villarreal over the river to create a new so-called Eurotown called Guadiana. The bridge linking the two countries, the towns, is the strongest metaphor imaginable for the different directions the UK and EU are heading in. On the Portuguese side of the river, the man in charge of the Eurotown has everything to say for closer European integration and nothing good about Brexit.
Europa isolada.
An isolated Europe, Germany alone, England alone, France alone, cannot compete with bigger economies. It makes sense to be united. It's also the idea of our Eurotown. Our little villages have only small potential, but together they're bigger and stronger. Merging with its Portuguese neighbour has done nothing to stop Ayamonte celebrating its Spanish traditions. Arguments in favour of Brexit, restoring British pride, are met with derision. The Kendricks can only watch their corner of the EU becoming stronger and closer, and they insist they will never go back to Britain, a country they no longer understand. Lawrence Lee, Al Jazeera, Ayamonte, southern Spain.
And that's our show for this week. If you'd like to comment on anything that you've seen, you can get in touch with us by, tweeting me. I'm at A Finnegan on Twitter. Please use the hashtag AJCTC when you do. Or you could drop us a line. countingthecost@aljazeera.net is our email address. As always, there's plenty more for you online at aljazeera.com/CTC. That link takes you straight to our page. And there you'll find individual reports, links, even entire episodes for you to catch up on. But that's it for this edition of Counting the Cost. I'm Adrian Finnegan from the whole team here in Doha. Thanks for being with us. The news on Al Jazeera is next.